Let's Make Me a Pallet on the Floor by Mississippi John Hurt. There's a link in the video description where you can download the tab for free from my website, and I'm going to walk you through it here measure by measure and give you some tips on how to play this one. We kick the song off on a C7 chord, which is just like our regular C chord, but we're going to add our pinky to the 3rd fret of the G string. And we're going to begin by pinching strings 5 and 2, the A and the B string. I use my thumb and my middle finger to do that. And then the thumb's going to come down to play the next bass note, but it's not just going to play a single bass note, it's going to play both the D and the G string. You can see I landed there on the B string, and that helps with the accuracy and giving my thumb a resting point that it can be aiming for when I'm playing more than one note like that. That's something that's really common in the playing of Mississippi John Hurt and other blues players. It might be a little awkward at first if you're used to only playing single bass notes with the thumb, so I recommend sitting there for a couple minutes and just doing a little bit of that to exercise that picking technique a little bit. It's worth it. It creates a cool rhythmic effect that you can use throughout the song. We'll talk again a little bit more about that as it comes up in later measures. So that gives us the first 2 beats, but they're not the 1st and 2nd beat, they're actually the 3rd and 4th beat because this measure is a pickup measure. We're not actually in the 1st measure of the song yet. We're in this pickup measure, which means if we were counting the song in with other players, what we would do is we'd count 1, 2, this would be 3, 4. Now we wouldn't have to count 3, 4, we'd just play it. So we'd go 1, 2. Alright, now we're ready to go to the 1st measure. So we're on this C7 chord already, and we're fairly close to where we need to be. The first thing you can do is just take your pinky off, and then your ring and your middle finger, they're each going to move down 1 string. Now, the thing that might be challenging at first on this is what the thumb has to do, which is the thumb's going to wrap around over here and play the 1st fret of the low E string. So this is common on steel string guitars where the neck is a little bit more narrow. You wouldn't do this on a classical guitar. In fact, it'd be really hard to do because the neck is so big. But this technique works really well for fingerstyle steel string guitar because now our pinky's free to play other melody notes, which it's going to do for us throughout the song here. This can be a challenging chord to get used to if you haven't played it before. One of the key things is get your thumb really close to the fret wire. Get it nice and snug up against it. That's going to be the sweet spot, the place where it's going to be easiest to get that note with the least amount of effort. It still may be a challenging chord though, and if you find that you're just not getting the clarity that you want to get out of it, one thing I often recommend to students is throw your capo on, maybe the 4th or the 5th fret. What that will do is it will narrow all those frets, get them to a shorter distance for your fretting hand to cover, and that can help make it a lot easier to get used to playing that chord at first. Now we're ready to play the 1st measure. We're going to start by pinching strings 6 and 3, the low E and the G string. I'm using my thumb and my index finger. And then, as the thumb drops down to the D string, I'm going to use my pinky on my fretting hand to fret the 3rd fret of the B string. And now I'm going to pinch strings 4 and 2, the D and the B string, with my thumb and my middle finger. On the and beat of that 2nd beat, I'm just going to lift the pinky off, and I'm going to pick the B string again with my middle finger. So now we have 1, 2, and. Alright, after that, the thumb's going to just come back up, play that bass note on string 6 again on the low E string, and then we're going to come down. Here's this technique again. We're going to play that double bass note there, strings 4 and 3. Now, if you're finding that technique to be just too tricky for you to get used to, because maybe you've played fingerstyle guitar that's only having to pick 1 note at a time with the thumb, you could do this and pinch with the thumb and index finger. It does have a different sound. It doesn't have quite the same rhythmic thump that the thumb has when you play with it, but it will still get you the right notes. So I'll leave that up to you. But experiment a little bit and see if you can get comfortable with that other technique, but just keep that in mind if you find that to be too tricky. Good to take a moment here to talk about the picking hand and what that has to do throughout the song. So I use 4 fingers when I pick, the thumb, index, middle, and ring. That means that most of the time the thumb is responsible for strings 6, 5, and 4, the index for string 3, the middle for string 2, the ring for string 1. That's because when I learned to play with my fingers, it was from a jazz guitarist, and jazz guitarists who play with their fingers, they tend to use 4 fingers. Many people, though, who might be used to playing these more folk and blues-oriented styles of finger picking might just use 3 fingers, the thumb, index, and middle, or might just use 2 fingers, the thumb and index. So if you already use one of those other picking styles, go ahead and just stick with that. You don't have to add in that ring finger or the middle finger, depending on what you do. However, if you're just starting out, I might recommend trying to learn to play with all 4 fingers because it's highly versatile. Depending on what style you want to play, it's going to really work for them all. So that's just to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm doing over here with my picking hand. But as I often say, you can figure out what works best for you, for where you are in your guitar journey. Now we have the first measure. 1, 2, and 3, 4. And the second measure, because that's going to repeat again. That brings us to the third measure, which is a C chord. So our fingers are already pretty close to a C chord, so you just have to move that middle and ring finger up a string. The pinky is going to fret the 3rd fret of the high E string. This is still a C chord because we're just adding a high G to the chord. We've already got the open G string in there, so this is another common voicing of C. And these next 2 measures are going to be a workout for the picking hand. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pinch strings 5 and 3, the A and the G string. Then we're going to pinch strings 4 and 1, the D and high E string. On the and beat of that, we're going to play the B string. So that gives us 1, 2, and. Okay, now we're going to come back to the 5th string, the A string, for just a solo bass note. And on the and beat of that 3rd beat, we're going to play the 3rd fret. So that now gives us 1, 2, and 3, and. For 4, we come back to the 2nd fret of the D string, string 4. Play that with the thumb. And on the and beat, we play the B string again. So that gives us 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Now it's nice to note there that we don't have to change anything on the fretting hand. You just lock that shape in and it's just all in your picking hand. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay, as we come to measure 4 now, we're going to stay on that shape to begin. We're going to pinch strings 5 and 1, the A and the high E string. And then we're going to play the B string on the and beat. So that would give us 1 and. Okay, on the 2 and, we're going to lift the pinky off the high E string to open that string up now. We're going to pinch the D string and the high E string, strings 4 and 1. We're going to play that same 8th note on the B string after that. So I'm going to reapply that pinky to go back to beat 1. 1 and, take the pinky off, 2 and. Leaving the pinky off, the 3rd beat is going to be strings 5 and 1, the A and the high E. I'm going to pinch those, but then my pinky for the and beat of 3 has to come back to the 3rd fret, but this time on the B string. So that'll sound like that. Okay, if we take the first 3 beats of measure 4 now, we'd have. Pinky's doing a little bit of a dance over there on the fretting hand. It's starting on the high E string, coming off the high E string, moving up to the B string. And then the final beat of that measure is just to bring the thumb down to string 4 again, to the D string for the last bass note. Okay, that gives us now. We might want to back up here as well and play measures 3 and 4 together. A little bit slower. So those are some tricky measures, especially rhythmically for the picking hand. That's why it's really good to go slow. It's also good to just note what the fretting hand has to do again. So remember, in that first measure, you're just holding the chord shape. Keep that shape in to start the next measure, but then the pinky comes off, moves up. which doesn't seem that bad by itself when you note that about the pinky, which is good. It kind of simplifies, okay, now we know what that has to do, because where it gets really tricky is where you're trying to do both things at once. You're trying to play all of those different string combinations with the picking hand and move the pinky at the same time. So playing that really slowly will be important. Another thing that can really help with measures like that is breaking them into small chunks. Before you get to playing both of them together, you might just start by playing maybe the first couple beats. After that, maybe add on another beat. I like to use this thing I call the rule of 3, which I say to myself, okay, I have to play something perfectly 3 times in a row before I can move on. If I get to the 3rd time and I mess up on the last note, I've got to start again at 0. It just pushes me to have to play things a bunch of times and really make sure that I have them down before I move on. Otherwise, it can get so tempting to just push ahead, even if we don't really have it. But breaking into small chunks, especially with these tricky rhythmic passages, can be really helpful to get them down. As we move on to measures 5 and 6, we're going to be coming back to that F shape that we used earlier. And these two measures are really similar to the first and second measure, but there are a couple tiny little changes. The first of which is as we play the first beat in measure 1, this time we're going to pinch strings 6 and 2, the low E and the B string. Then, like we did before, the pinky's going to fret the 3rd fret of B. We're going to pinch strings 4 and 2. And we're going to play the B string again on the and beat of 2, so that gives us 1, 2, and. This stays the same as measure 1. Thumb comes back to string 6, and then it does that double bass on the 4th and 3rd string. So measure 5 would be 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay, measure 6 is exactly the same, except the first beat you don't have to play as a pinch this time. You're just going to play that solo bass note. So it'll sound like that. Measures 5 and 6 together now. That brings us in measure 7 back to a C chord, and like we did before, we're going to add the pinky to the 3rd fret of the high E string, and we're going to begin by pinching the 5th and the 3rd string, the A and the G. Then we're going to pinch the 4th and the 1st string, the D and the high E. Play the B string on the and beat. 1, 2, and. Okay, this time the bass line changes a little bit. We're adding a 3rd bass note, which is that the ring finger is going to move up to the 3rd fret of the low E string. So this is beat 3. So let's just do that. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And that was the high E string. 1, 2, and 3, and. Okay, for 4, we come back to the D string, 2nd fret, and then the B string again, 1st fret. So everything is operating out of the C chord shape except for that one additional bass note that the ring finger moves up right here to get on the low E string. As I often recommend, it can be good to just listen to the bass line. Really try to focus your attention on the music of the bass line, and then try adding in the melody again. I find that can just give us a different relationship to the bass line. We can hear it more as a musical theme unto itself, and then we can hear it easier amidst all those melody notes as well. In measure 8, we're just going to take that ring finger, move it back down to the 3rd fret of the A string. Everything else stays the same. We're going to start by pinching the A and the high E string, and then playing the B string. Then we're going to pinch the D and the high E string. And right here we're going to play both the B and the high E on the and of 2. So that would give us 1 and 2 and. Let's pause for just a moment to take a tangent about the picking hand. So those last 2 notes, I've been playing them with my middle and my ring finger, pinching those notes together. But Mississippi John Hurt, what he was likely doing there was taking his middle finger and just brushing up on those 2 notes, much like the thumb technique we talked about earlier, just in the opposite direction. If you've never seen any videos of him playing, you should check out these old episodes of Rainbow Quest, Pete Seeger's show, where Mississippi John Hurt was a guest. You get some great looks at him playing guitar, and he uses his thumb, index, and middle finger. So this is part of his technique sometimes, is that the thumb will brush down across multiple strings, and depending on what strings he's playing in the melody, his middle or his index finger will brush up and play a couple strings simultaneously. So fun stuff to fool with. And it can add a different sort of quality to the sound. All right, the last little bit of that measure now, measure 8, is that the ring finger, again, it's going to move up to that 3rd fret of the low E string. We're going to play that with the thumb all by itself, just a bass note. Then we're going to play the 3rd fret of the high E string, and then the thumb is going to come down to play the 2nd fret of the D string. So again, just like the previous measure, everything's pretty much staying where we set it up originally on the fretting hand, with the one exception of that moving bass note to get that 3rd bass note in the pattern. Okay, again, these are pretty tricky rhythmic measures, so breaking them into small chunks can be really helpful, and playing them really slowly can be really helpful. Let's hear how they sound together, measure 7 and 8. Okay, let's do that one more time. Now again, if you need to, play them even slower than that. Part of the advantage to hearing them played slowly first, this is something that having a teacher can really help with, is they can play things, they should be able to play things slowly for you, and that can just help you hear how the song sounds slowed down. I know at first that's really difficult for most of us. If we're used to just hearing the song played really fast, like it is on the recording, it becomes very hard to figure out how should it sound when it's slowed down. So just hearing it like that can be a big help. And then it is a skill. The more you learn to slow things down, the more benefit you'll find from it, but also the easier you'll find it to be to hear what it is you're supposed to play. And I think one of the key things to keep in mind is trying to keep things really even. That's why I sometimes count out the measures: 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. That way everything's staying nice and even throughout. A tendency sometimes people might have when they're going slowly is, for instance, those first 2 beats, 1, 2, those are quarter notes. The rest of it's pretty busy with eighth notes. And what happens is sometimes we'll rush those beats almost like they're eighth notes. So just a couple little tips that might help with slowing things down. All right, now we're coming to measure 9. Measure 9, we're going to be on a regular old E chord shape here, just as we would normally first learn it. And we're going to start by pinching strings 6 and 1. Then the thumb's going to come down. We're going to get a little double bass note there. We're going to play the high E string on the and of 2. 1, 2, and 3 is playing the 6th string in the bass again. Okay, then for the and of 3, we're going to play the open B string. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. So the 4 and there was my thumb coming back down to string 4 in the bass, playing that with the high E string open, and then back to the 2nd string open. So measure 9, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. All right, measure 10, still out of that E chord shape. We're going to start our first bass note this time on string 5 though, and then we're going to pick the open G string on the and beat. So we have to lift that index finger off for just a moment, and then we're going to hammer on to the 1st fret. Now there's another tricky thing there. You might have noticed that my thumb played the bass note on the 4th string at the exact same moment my index finger hammered on. So let's just hear how that would sound. 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Okay, that is a really tricky thing to get used to if you haven't done it before. Again, you want that hammer on to land and sound that note exactly as your thumb is picking the bass note. That's a really difficult rhythmic delivery to get used to. It always makes me kind of think of this motion. It's like you're trying to bring the note into the fretboard as the thumb goes down. and you're trying to coordinate that at exactly the same time. So when I first came across this in a song, I had to sit there for a long time and just go like this. Just trying to time that motion. Again, as soon as the index finger's hammering, that's when the thumb should be picking. And then those are sounding in unison together. Okay, after that, we're going to play the open B string on the and of 2. 1 and 2 and. Okay, on the third beat, we're going to pinch the E strings. And then the pinky has to fret the third fret of the B string. This makes it an E7 chord now. It's a cool little measure. Okay, that fourth beat was my thumb came down again and played a little pair of bass notes there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Measure 9 and 10 together now. Okay, one more time, a little bit slower. So those are pretty tricky measures as well. Like I said earlier, break things into small pieces, put the microscope on what you're playing, and just try to really get nice and comfortable with each little thing before you add it back into the whole. It might seem easy when you hear somebody else playing it or you just listen to it, but when I first was learning this stuff, I had to do exactly that, and it's key to just be really patient with yourself. The important thing is to be consistent. Just keep working on a little bit each day. Wherever you are with it, wherever the current comfort level is totally okay, and you'll just gradually add to it a little bit each practice session. All right, now as we come to measure 11, we're going to come back to our F shape, and we're going to repeat a measure from earlier here. We're going to repeat measure 5. Measure 12 almost repeats measure 6, but it adds an extra note in. So those first 3 beats, identical to measure 6, but on the and of 3, the pinky is going to fret the B string, and then the thumb is going to come down on beat 4, just like it did before, to play that double bass note. So it's really just that pinky note, that third fret of B, that gets added into this measure. It sounds like that. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Measure 13, we're coming back to a C chord. Just a regular C chord to begin here. Don't have to put the pinky anywhere, at least at first. We're going to pinch strings 5 and 1. The thumb's going to come down, and it's going to do a double bass note. Then the pinky has to fret the third fret of high E. So that gives us 1, 2, and... Oh, here's Melba to say hello. Hello, Melba. How's it going? Melba loves Mississippi John Hurt. I think we left off here. 1, 2, and 3 is the thumb playing the bass note on the 5th string again, and 4 will be the thumb playing a double bass note on the 4th and 3rd string. That gives us 1, 2, and 3, 4. Now for the first and only time in the song, we're going to a G chord. We can just move that ring finger up to the 3rd fret of the low E string. We play that bass note by itself on the first beat, play the open B string on the and beat. Then on the second beat, we're going to pinch the open 4th and 1st string, play the B string on the and of that beat as well. So that gives us now 1 and 2 and. Beat 3, we're going to pinch both of the E strings. The high E string's open still, and I'm fretting that 3rd fret on the low E string. Then my pinky's going to fret the 3rd fret of the B string on the and of 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and. For the 4th beat, my thumb plays just the D string and the bass. And then my index finger is going to come over here to play the 1st fret of the B string. You can see my other fingers are coming off because I'm getting ready to go to a C chord. And that's going to give us this now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, and now we come into this kind of classic Mississippi John Hurt C chord thing. right, let's take it into measure 15, but we'll come in from the final note of measure 14, which was that first fret of the second string. And that's going to, as I said, lead us into the C chord. So we're going to bring our full C chord on at that point, and then we're going to play string 5, 3, 4, 3. So that was thumb, index, and 1 and 2 and. If I take that first fret note that finished off the measure before this, it would sound like that. Okay, then the ring finger is going to move up to the third fret of the low E string. We're going to play that with our thumb, play the open G string with our index again. So now we have 1 and 2 and 3 and. For 4 and, move your middle finger up to the second fret of the A string. You're going to play that with your thumb, then play the open G string with your index, and then you're going to finish off back on that third fret note. That's actually the first beat of the final measure. If we bring that all together now, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Or backing up another half beat to play that final note of the previous measure, that first fret of the B string, we'd have. And that kind of brings it all together as this nice little C chord theme. The 16th and final measure brings us back to C7 where we kicked things off. And structurally, the 16th measure is actually where those pickup notes were coming from at the beginning of the song. So as we start to play the song on a cycle, we don't have to repeat those pickup notes because they're technically part of this measure that we're about to end things on as well. So they just play those 2 beats to lead us into the song. We don't have to add those 2 beats later on because they're part of what we're about to play here. So we're going to begin by playing a solo bass note on string 5 with the thumb, and then we're going to play a double bass note on strings 4 and 3 for the second beat. For beat 3, we're going to pinch strings 6 and 3 with the thumb and index finger, and then the thumb is going to come back to strings 4 and 3 for a double bass note. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and now that we've done that, we're back at the first measure, meaning that we're coming back into an F chord. And now we're just going to repeat everything from there as we cycle through the song. And that's Make Me a Pallet on the Floor by Mississippi John Hurt. Hope you have fun learning this one. Let me know if you have any questions, and happy picking.